I'm Rabbi Halvard Loria, the senior rabbi here at B'nai Yeshurun, and on behalf of the three conservative synagogues, Park Synagogue, with Rabbi Marcus here, Shari Tikva, and B'nai Yeshurun, we are honored to have our shared conservative community gathered here together to welcome Yizhar Hess from Israel, from Jerusalem, technically now Modi'in. And it's very special to have Yizhar here. For more than 20 years, Yizhar has been an advocate for Masorti conservative Judaism in Israel. And now, the last 4 years, he is the vice chair of the WZO, the World Zionist Organization, which is the leading Zionist organization in Israel and for global Jewry. He is the number 2 in that organization. We're going to hear much more about it. And Devorah, who's with him, asked me if I wanted a prepared bio, and I decided I'd just use Wikipedia. So just to tell you a little bit about Yizhar before we get to know him. Born and educated in Jerusalem, he began his service in the IDF in 1985 in the Armored Corps Division. And it has a section about Yizhar's views and opinions, so thought this would be good. Hess has been an outspoken critic of extremism in Israel, defending conservative Judaism and pluralism. Since becoming vice chair of the World Zionist Organization, he has focused on advancing the idea of Jewish peoplehood. And today, Yizhar is here to speak about many things. One is the way that we here in Cleveland can support Israel, and help Jews worldwide, which is another thing. Yizhar has been working on Israel and diaspora relations for more than 20 years as the CEO of Masorti Judaism for 13 years prior to his position at the WZO. And Yizhar is a colleague and an incredible supporter for us here in Cleveland and for Jews in Israel, speaking about the day after and what we can do for that.
Thank you so much, Rabbi, for the warm words, for the great introduction. I feel privileged to be here with you tonight. First of all, I'd like to thank you for coming. You know, I'm a native Jerusalemite of 10 generations, and I do not live, as Rabbi mentioned, I do not live in Jerusalem today. I live in Modi'in. So when we say, oh, to go to Jerusalem at night in winter, it's cold. Then I came to Cleveland. It's freezing there, so I appreciate the fact that you came in such a cold weather. Toda rabba. I'd like to speak with you today about current situation in Israel, about Zionism, about things that can be done for Israel that is looking forward to get to October 8th. In so many ways, we are in Israel still in October 7th. The calendar may have changed, but we are not there yet. And you can feel it if you visit Israel. You can feel it in the coffee shops. You can feel it in the theaters. They still operate, but in the first row or on stage, there is the yellow chair with pictures of the people that are held in Gaza. You can feel it even in private simchas, where the playlist is different, the volume is different. Something in the air is still stuck in the same feeling that we had that Shabbat morning, that surprised us so much in a way that none of us anticipated. Now, I want to start with a very personal note. I think that my family, we are lucky. Thank God that our son, Achiad, was not in Israel on October 7th. Achiad is 28 years old. He's a student at the Hebrew University, and it was the last week of the summer vacation. And he was trekking in Nepal. He didn't hear anything that Shabbat, not even on Motzei Shabbat, not even on Sunday, because he was in a place with no internet. Only when he reached on Sunday evening a guest house with a few Israelis that he met there, he learned about what happened in Israel on the morning of Simchat Torah. And in the next few days, he did whatever he could in order to come back home, to come back to Israel. So he walked for a day till he reached the nearest road, then rented a jeep in a ridiculous price, 10 hours on a bumpy road till he reached the airport, took a plane to the capital of Nepal, and bought a ticket in the capital of Nepal to Israel via Mumbai, India, only to discover that you need an Indian visa to fly via India. He didn't have a visa, so he had to toss that ticket, bought another one, this time via the Emirates. He landed in Israel on Thursday morning. We met him at the airport. We took him home. He had a quick meal with his parents, took a shower, and rushed to his IDF unit. Thank God that Achiad was not in Israel on October 7th. I know my son, he would have rushed that morning to his unit, would have put his hands on whatever rifle he could get, and would have ran to the Gaza envelope to save as many civilians, to kill as many Israelis, according to the statistics of that Shabbat. The majority of soldiers that were not on duty and did what I just described did not survive. So thank God that Achiad was not in Israel on October 7th. Unfortunately, for so many other families, this is not the case. It's 14 months since the war started. Who would believe that a war in Gaza would last so long, with another front that now hopefully the ceasefire would last, that Israel will be dealing with two fronts in so many months, and still with not an ending that one can see as 101 hostages in Gaza. I do not know how would Israel look when we reach October 8th. I know that optimism is a decision, and optimism is a political statement, and optimism is an internal belief that the future will be better. And I think that looking forward to October 8th, this is something that we need to bear in mind. The year 2023, October 7, 2023, the year 2023 was the 75th year of the anniversary of Israel. We thought that we will be having a wonderful year of celebrations, 75 years since our establishment, and what a Yom Huledet present we got. What a Yom Huledet present we got, because as much as October 7th and the months following October 7th were horrible, we need to remember that October 6th was not a paradise either. Do you remember October 6th? The 10 months that we had in Israel prior to October 7th, from January 2023 till October 6th, 10 months that the Israeli society was torn. Tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of Israelis every week demonstrating against our duly elected government, because of the feel that our democracy is in jeopardy. Because so many of us felt that the DNA of Israel is democracy, and God forbid someone wants to change the DNA. Now, how do you look at it from a sense of optimism? That's a serious question. I find a sense of comfort from the emblem of those demonstrations in Israel prior to October 7th, and I think it would serve us too when we get to October 8th. What was the emblem of the demonstrations, of 10 months of demonstrations in Israel? Do you remember? The Israel flag. The Israeli flag. Tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of Israeli flags that everyone held in their hands. We had waves of demonstrations in Israel history. Never before the flag was used in that way. Now, it's a phenomenon. It's a phenomenon that we need to stop next to and think, how come? It's the same flag, the very same flag that Theodor Herzl introduced on the stage in the first Zionist Congress in 1897. Almost identical to the very same flag, as if people felt that if something so fundamental is at risk, we need to go back to the fundamentals and to hold again the flag of Zionism. Now, in order to understand it more deeply, I'd like to go back in history for that first Zionist Congress. Where was the year I said, 1897, where was it? Where was the first Zionist Congress? Basel, right, everyone remembers Basel. Why Basel? From all places, why Basel? Switzerland, yes, Switzerland. They have great chocolate. Watches, also, they are calm, no enemies. Why Basel? Seriously, it's a serious question. Actually, what? They are neutral. Yes, neutrality, but it's not because of the neutrality of Switzerland. Actually, Theodor Herzl did not want Basel. He wanted Munich, Germany. Munich was posh, was intellectual, was cosmopolitan. He wanted Munich, and he knew Europe well. Theodor Herzl, back then, was the political correspondent of the Neue Freie Presse. It's the intellectual newspaper of Western Europe back then. He was a known figure. He was based in Paris, columns every week, a serious journalist. He knew Europe. He knew politics. He knew that the right place is Munich. He couldn't have it in Munich. And you know why? Excuse me, rabbis. There are several rabbis here. Excuse me, rabbis, it's because of the rabbis. The rabbis of Munich, all of them, from Reform to Orthodox, including the beginning of conservative Judaism as well, all of them signed a proclamation that was sent to the municipality of Munich with a demand to ban the option of having this radical convention of Jews who believe that the Jewish people should have sovereignty in Palestine. So radical, so absurd, so dangerous. Not in our backyard, they said. Herzl didn't like it, but didn't want to pick that fight, and set his sights and went to Basel. So Basel was picked because it's the place where Herzl could book a place, a convention center to hold the first Zionist Congress. Now, actually, there were not so many people. 209, according to Herzl's diary, or 207, excuse me, delegates participated in the first Zionist Congress, so not that many. And Herzl planned every iota in this 3 days of, convening in Basel. Some story that I like about those days, Herzl arrived to Basel just a few days before the Congress, came in a train from Paris, and the first thing that he did when he landed in Basel was to see the place that he rented for the conference. Now remember, planning now. When we plan an event, we have, we go to the website, we see how it looks, we do FaceTime with the producer. There are a million ways of knowing how to. He didn't know how it would look. So he rushed to the place, and he was very, very tensed about the place because he had a vision. He had a vision that he needs to find a place that would be, that would give the content that he would like to introduce the right ambiance, to give people the feel that it can happen. Now he went to see the place that he rented, and he didn't like it. He didn't like it. Herzl knew something about theaters, and he knew something about how to organize a place, because his passion, as much as he was a good writer, his passion was not in journalism. His passion was in theater. He was a playwright. His big dream was to be a famous playwright. Herzl wrote 20 plays, even more. Some of them were even staged. Thank God none of them succeeded. The drama world lost a good playwright, we gained. But his passion was theater. He understood drama. He saw that the hall that he rented from Paris was not the right thing. He canceled the reservation. He went to find another place, and he found the Stad Casino. It's not a casino. It's a theater, like an old oakish European theater you can imagine, with red velvet on the seats, like an old theater. He loved it, and in the next 3 days, he dedicated his time to the decor. You know, content-wise, everything was ready. He wrote his book, The Jewish State, Judenstaat. He wrote it a year before that. Everyone that came to the Congress read it. So content-wise, he wasn't nervous, but he wanted that the place would look like a parliament. So he knew that it's important where the flag would be and how the stage would look like and where the people will be sitting and where the presidium will be sitting and what will be the protocol of how things will be conducted. He did the utmost to give people the feeling that something new is starting here and that it's doable, that it's achievable. He wanted to create ambience that would be as far as it could be from a back room of a synagogue in Eastern Europe where 10 men sit, drink schnapps, and talk Yiddish. He wanted to give it a feel of a European parliament. And he, you know, everything that has to do with it, like the open ceremony was scheduled for August 29th, 1897 at 10 a.m. If you would have gotten the reservation, the ticket to come to the opening session, the dress code was frock. Frock is like the European of back then tuxedo, okay, with long tail. Not only frock, but high hat, cylinder, and a white bow tie. That was the dress code. And Herzl was very serious about it. He writes in his diary that in the morning of the Congress, Sunday, 9:30, he's standing at the entrance, greeting people. You know, you can imagine Herzl stands, greeting people very... and he sees his deputy. His deputy in the First Zionist Congress is Dr. Max Nordau. If you visit Tel Aviv, the big Nordau Boulevard that almost every city in Israel has. In Tel Aviv, it's a main one. You know, Nordau, before he was a boulevard, he was a person. and he was Herzl's deputy on the First Zionist Congress. I'm fond with Nordau, not necessarily because of the things that he wrote. He wrote a lot, but not necessarily because of that, but because today I sit on his chair. Okay, I'm the second in command after... So I learned quite a lot about him. Nordau approached, remember, we are now at 9:30, waiting for the Herzl in the entrance. He sees Max Nordau approaching the auditorium, wearing, God forbid, a white light suit. Not according to the dress code. Herzl was furious. He talked with him, they had a little discussion. He sent him back to his hotel to dress up. He came back dressed like he should have, and they hugged, and the Congress began. People reported a lot of things from that 3 days in Basel. You know, people wrote diaries, people wrote articles to the newspapers. Many of them came to Basel not to agree with Herzl. All of them, as I said, read the publication, but they weren't sure that it's implementable. They weren't sure that it's the time or it's the... They had reservations. So the majority of them did not come to agree with Herzl, yet the 3 days there made them feel that, you know, let's give it a serious try. By the way, Herzl himself changed over the Congress. People who knew him in before felt that it's not the same person, that the minute the Congress began, it's as if he felt the responsibility on his shoulders. He took it seriously. The role of leading the idea was seriously felt and influenced him. The way he moved on stage, the way he conducted the business in a royal way, in a presidential way. He had charisma, no doubt. But it's not due to the charisma and not due to the theatrical drama that draw everyone to feel that it could work. Herzl introduced an idea that was not part of the Zionist movement before. Sometimes people think that Herzl was the first Zionist. Herzl was not the first Zionist. Modern Zionism began like 15 years before Herzl. The first wave of Aliyah, 1882, was 15 years before the first Zionist Congress. So Herzl was not the first Zionist. What did he do there on the first Zionist Congress that made it such a pivotal moment in the Jewish history? What was the secret sauce? Herzl politicized the Zionist idea. He introduced politics forcefully, and he convinced people that via political tools, the idea that they liked to have, they weren't sure how, that via politics it will be implemented sooner than later. And boy, how right he was. 51 years after the first Zionist Congress, the State of Israel was established. In historical terms, it's nothing. Herzl, of course, didn't live to see it. He died, 7 years later, 7 years after the first Zionist Congress, at the age of 44. Herzl passed away, so he was a young person of 37, starting this world movement of changing Jewish history. Politics was the tool that Herzl strongly believed in. Now, what was the politics that Herzl introduced there? I think we have reasons to be proud of that politics. For the first Zionist Congress, everyone were invitees of Herzl. Okay, they were invited because of various reasons. He looked for influential people. He as many places. He could invite people from as many walks of life. He wanted like plurality as a value, but they were all invitees. From the second Congress on, you had to be elected. The homework that the delegates received when the Congress ended: go back to your hometowns, go back to your villages, to your cities, establish Zionist federations, have elections, and if you are elected, you are most welcome to come to the second Congress. If not, tough luck. In order to have democracy, you need to have constituency, you need to have elections. In order to be shliach tzibur, you need to have tzibur. A key component of what democracy is. The second thing that Herzl was insisting about is women's rights. From the second Congress on, women had the right to vote and to get elected. One of the first political movements in the world that allowed women the right to vote and to get elected. Here in the States, when did women get the right to vote? 1919, 1920. Okay, I was in New York 2 months ago. There is a wonderful new musical Safs. Okay, if you go to New York, make sure you see it. 1920. Okay, so really Zionism could be proud of the fact that way before other countries, it was important enough for the Zionist leadership to have that equal right that is so natural to us today. Interesting. By the way, who is the last democratic country that allowed women the right to vote is Switzerland. 1972 was the year, right? Amazing, 1972. So democracy and Zionism are so linked from the very first moment Zionism had its first step. From that lens, I would like to remember the first Zionist Congress. And I think that if you analyze the Congress from that lens, you understand why in 1948, in the middle of Milchemet HaAtzmaut, in the middle of the War of Independence, it was important enough for the leadership of the World Zionist Congress, David Ben-Gurion and others, it was important enough for them to have a break in the middle of the war, to convene the leadership in Tel Aviv on May 14, and to sign the Declaration of Independence. They could have waited, they didn't want to wait. They wanted to sign the Declaration of Independence, the document that anchors the democratic values of the Zionist endeavor, that anchors the DNA of Zionism as a democratic entity, Yehudit ודמוקרטית, דמוקרטית ויהודית בדיבור אחד. Jewish and democratic, democratic and Jewish, all at once, in one sentence. When you take these two dots in history, August 29th, 1897 in Basel, Switzerland, and May 14, 1948 in Tel Aviv, Israel, if you take these two dots in history, you'll see a thick line of democratic values that connects these two dots. I think this is the way to understand the year 2023. The 10 months prior to October 7th were so important, were so serious, were so dramatic due to the fact that it connects by instinct to other points of history where democracy, the Israeli democracy was shapen. And I think that it has to do with the Israel of October 8th, when we will be getting to October 8th. The Israel of October 8th needs to stand on three pillars. Three pillars that are so needed in order to build the country that we should have and we should all be connected to and proud of. One of the pillars is, of course, security. We learned that the security doctrine of the state of Israel collapsed. We need to build a security doctrine that would take under consideration things that we weren't prepared for. It means that the next decade, economy-wise, the next decade in Israel, we will be investing more and more billions in building security system and investing in enlarging the IDF. You know, the big disputes that you read about now in Israel regarding drafting the Haredim to the army are not because someone wants to chase the Haredim's lifestyle. It's because we need more men and women in the army. It's needed. We need more soldiers. So this is one pillar, the security pillar. The second is something that we are not that aware of. Some of us are even ignoring the fact that it will be part of our lives. It's a need. Okay, it is something that is essential for the future of the state of Israel. It's a pillar that needs to be built according or based on the peace process. I'm not sure how it would look like. I'm not sure that I can envision it, okay? But I'm quite certain that history told us or taught us that out of catastrophes, sometimes new paradigms are coming. We can't allow ourselves to continue to be at war with our neighbors. We need to find a way, both sides, to find a way to build that pillar that would allow us to thrive without having every decade another catastrophe. The third one, the third pillar, has to do with democracy. I'm not sure if you follow, but you can already hear the sound of the judicial reform coming again to be an active player in our lives in Israel. Our government that was elected democratically, our duly elected government, is going back, at least to some extent, at least some of the ministers, to the same lingo that was part of the discourse before. A lingo that shaked back then, would shake if it's implemented, the few checks and balances that we have in Israel's democracy. We do not have that many. Our checks and balances in Israel are fewer than other democracies. We don't have a constitution. We don't, it's a different kind of thriving democracy, but yet with not that many checks and balances, God forbid, if the few that we have will not be there. So it's a serious thing that we already feel that is happening. It's quite a campaign that we will be having when we'll get to October 8th. The majority of the things that needs to be done in Israel will be done by us Israelis living in Israel. That's the nature of the beast. And we will be doing, I hope, the utmost to make sure that we will be back to the country that is both strong and worth loving, supporting, and being proud of. Yet, Israel is the only nation state of the Jewish people. It's the only Jewish state. And Israel belongs not only to Israelis, to the Israelis who live there, but to the entire Jewish people. How many Jews do we have in the world today? 16. Most demographers would say even 17 million Jews today. In Israel, 7 million Jews. We have 9 million Israelis, 7 of them Jewish. In North America, Canada and the US together, we have 8 million Jews. And 2 million Jews in different parts of the world. How many? What is the third largest Jewish community? France, with 500,000 Jews. So the two centers of the Jewish people today, North America and Israel. Okay, but 17 million people, it's nothing, right? It's compared to the 9 billion people that live in the entire globe, 17 million, it's less than a fifth of 1%. We are not that many to be not very cautious about each and every Jew. We have one Jewish state. Now, interestingly enough, and I'm not sure that he thought about it in advance, but Theodor Herzl, that we spoke about in the first Zionist Congress, left us with a tool to engage Jewish people from all over the world. The World Zionist Congress, the World Zionist Organization is one of the names for the World Zionist Congress, the same organization, had an ultimate goal in 1897 and during the years to establish the Jewish state. It was accomplished in 1948, right? The big goal was accomplished, the ultimate goal. From that moment on, the Congress became the only democratic tool that allows Jews from all over the world to be represented in Israel, that allows Jews from all over the world not only to have an opinion and a voice when it comes to Israel, but also to have a vote when it comes to Israel. The delegates of the Congress, like the parliament of the Jewish people, third of it come from Israel. When I vote to the Knesset sends delegates to the Congress. This is 1/3 of the delegates. The second third is you guys, Jews who live in the United States of America. There are elections every 5 years. The coming elections are in the first part of 2025. We'll talk about it in a second. This is the second third. The third is Jews from all over the world, from Latin America, from Europe, from Asia, from Africa, from Australia. Okay, that's the makeup of the Congress, third, and third. It means that the majority of the delegates represents the Tfutzot, represents diaspora Jewry, 2/3. Now, the Congress, of course, has an ultimate goal before 1948 to establish a state. Ever since then, we have the Knesset in Israel, we have a government. So what does the Congress do? What are our responsibilities? So I found it to be the best kept secret. A, the fact that there is a World Zionist Congress, and B, the responsibilities. Some of you heard about some of the companies that I will be addressing or naming their names now. We have many daughter companies to the World Zionist Congress. One of them is the Jewish Agency. I'm sure that you heard of the Jewish Agency that does many programs of connecting Jews in Israel and outside of Israel, that, the Shinshinim, the Shlichut, sends emissaries, Shlichim, to different summer camps, Nifty and Ramah and Young Judea. The Jewish Agency that is known for a few other things too. When we had the war in Ukraine that started 2 years ago, 3 years ago already. 3 years ago, it was the Jewish Agency professionals who stood on the borders and approached Jews to help them to find shelters, to go to hotel, to come to Israel, to go to other places, to give them food, to give them, warm clothing. For the first time in the history of the Jewish people, it was better to be a Jew when war broke off. And this is the Jewish Agency, and the Jewish Agency did it on behalf of all of us. Okay, this is what they do. This is what we do there. So the Jewish Agency is one of our assets. 50% of the Board of Governors of the Jewish Agency, it's the Congress, the World Zionist Congress. The second daughter company, we have a few, but these are the two major ones. The second daughter company is even more important than the first one, than the Jewish Agency. It's Keren Kayemet L'Yisrael. Keren Kayemet L'Yisrael, known as JNF. Not to be confused with JNF USA, that operates here. JNF Israel, Keren Kayemet L'Yisrael, the company that Theodor Herzl founded in 1903 in order to purchase land in Israel. The land was purchased, and today 17%, 17, of the land in Israel is owned by Keren Kayemet L'Yisrael. In Israel, there is lots of development. The land bears fruit, and it means that the budget of Keren Kayemet L'Yisrael, its annual budget, is huge. The annual budget of Keren Kayemet L'Yisrael is $2 billion a year, with a B. Serious money. Now, that money does not belong to the government of Israel. does not belong to the people of Israel solely. It belongs to all of us together. You are landlords in Israel. I'm not sure if you knew, but you are. This money belongs to all of us together. It's the biggest collective pot of the Jewish people. Now, the way that money is allocated and the way policies are being taken, and it's all about how do you vote it to the Congress, because 100% of the Board of Governors of Keren Kayemet Israel is the way people were voting to the Congress. As simple as that, a political system that allows people to be part of the process. Now, I'm speaking of it, proudly from one hand, but I'm also disturbed from the other hand, because what happened to us in the last elections to the Congress was a tragedy, truthfully. The last elections was in 2020. And the number of people who voted, I represent Merkaz. Merkaz is the Masorti conservative party to the Congress. We call it slates, not parties, but I represent Merkaz. We got, in the US, 15,000 votes. 8 million Jews in North America, okay, 15,000 votes. The Reform did a little better. They got 26 or 27,000 votes, okay. You know who did well? The Orthodox, and especially the Haredim. The Haredim ran a slate for the first time in the history. Remember, Haredi Judaism was never part of the Zionist movement. They opposed Zionism. For them, Herzl was Sitra Achra, was Davar Acher, Herzl was the devil himself. So they weren't part. They decided to join in 2020 because of various reasons, I don't want to be, because of various reasons. They decided to join, and they were able to mobilize their people in a very tangible way. 25,000 votes in the first time that they ran. And it was the most of the voters came from a few neighborhoods in Flatbush. And became a very serious party in the Congress. And it changed the forces in the Zionist movement for the first time. Since Herzl's time, the pluralistic side of Zionism became a minority. Not an insignificant minority, but still a minority. Today in the Congress, it's as if a fifth of North American Jewry are Haredim, which is of course not the case. It's not a reflection of North American Jewry in any way, but they bothered to vote and we didn't. And in any elections, the people who do not vote actually voted, right? Because they allowed others' values to be present. Now, what are the ramifications? They are serious. They are serious. The Jewish Agency is, one of its responsibilities is eligibility for Aliyah. And today, on the Board of Governors of the Jewish Agency, there are Haredi Jews that rightly, this is their theology is not better than mine, okay, it's different. According to their theology, a Reform convert or a conservative convert is not Jewish. Something that was never part of the Zionist discourse. It was part of the tensions between state and religion in Israel, but within the Zionist movement, that was never an issue. And all of a sudden, yes, it is an issue. Another aspect has to do with budgets. As we all know, there is no separation of religion and state in Israel. And the non-Orthodox movements are not recognized and are not funded by the government. The only source of funding that the non-Orthodox movements that funds them is the national institutions, the World Zionist Congress and its daughter companies, the Jewish Agency, Keren Kayemet Israel. And again, now, newcomers, for them, this is not a value because of various reasons. Pluralism is not a value that they stand for. And budgets, they are not lacking because the government is funding very heavily Orthodoxy in Israel and ultra-Orthodoxy in Israel, so this is not a big issue. And the little thing that these two movements, Reform Judaism and Masorti Conservative Judaism, in Israel now is at risk that the budgets that they are getting. That has to do with our movement in Israel, but it's not necessarily the most important thing. When you have a budget of $2 billion a year, you have a way to influence how Israel look like. And as you can imagine, when the forces changed, there are attempts every week, every month, attempts to take the money and to do things with that money that are not necessarily representing the core values or that are not necessarily representing the consensus of the Jewish world. Now, once you deal or touch money that belongs to the entire Jewish world, you need to be cautious. You need to make sure that you don't alienate, that you work within the ranks of consensus. Unfortunately, the battle that we are now leading in the Congress is exactly for that, to make sure that we can all be proud of the Zionist movement and of the State of Israel, and to make sure that when it touches assets of us collectively, we are very cautious about. The Israel of October 8th will be looking at a North American Jewry and Jews from all over the world to be part of the mending that needs to occur in Israel. And one of the ways to be active, one of the ways to be part of the rebuild of Israel is participating in the elections. We are trying to work differently this time. Unlike 2020, where we had good results because we had 50% more of the previous round, yet it wasn't enough. Today we know that the slates that are now running to the Congress are more in number than before. The Haredim have now 2 slates. Eish HaTorah, also established a state, so there are a slate, so there are 2 Haredi ones, there are other Orthodox ones. Now, it's all legit. You know, I have nothing, of course, against Orthodoxy. It's not better than my Judaism, than your Judaism. It's different. But God forbid if the reflection of North American Jewry as it is will not be represented in the Congress correctly, it would mean that policies and monies will be taken to things that are not necessarily representing the consensus. This is in a nutshell what I wanted to share with you before we open to questions and to ideas and to reservations. I'd like to show you a video, okay, that summarizes and touches some of the things that I didn't touch tonight.
The Jewish people today are facing unprecedented challenges. On October 7th, Israel experienced a pogrom. Since, we fought to bring our hostages home and defeat Hamas. Around the world, Jewish communities are facing rising anti-Semitism and challenges educating our next generation. And when Jewish unity is more important than ever, extremists have torn Israel apart and divided us. Now more than ever, Israel and the Jewish people need us to stand up for our values, to stand up for Israel and Zionism, for democracy and pluralism, for a Jewish and democratic Israel that unite us by becoming a welcoming home for every kind of Jew. Voting for Merkaz in elections to the World Zionist Congress is how we, conservative Masorti Jews, stand up for Israel, stand up for our values, and make our voice heard loud and clear in the Jewish state. Conservative Masorti Judaism is vibrant and diverse, with members worldwide, a powerful tradition, a deep connection to Israel, and an important voice in the Jewish world. Voting for Merkaz in elections for the Zionist Congress makes that voice heard at all the national institutions of the Jewish people. Kakal JNF, it's not just planting trees. The Jewish agency, Aliyah Shlichim, Karen HaYesod, raising millions for Israel. These organizations make key decisions and spend billions every year. All this is controlled by the Zionist Congress, by your vote. Voting for Merkaz not only helps us fight to get a fair shake in Israel by fighting for pluralism and equality, and against the ultra-Orthodox monopoly. Voting Merkaz makes sure those who need it most get a fair share of the billions these organizations spend every year, supporting those hardest hit on October 7th and Jewish communities in crisis, funding the Masorti movement in Israel and key programs in conservative Masorti communities and organizations worldwide, educating the next generation, like I was, through Ramah, Noam, USY, and more. That's right, not only our values, but billions with a B are at stake. Money Israel needs to rebuild. money our own communities need to stay strong, stand up for Israel, and educate the next generation. Now more than ever, Jews everywhere are asking, what can we do to help shape and secure Israel's future? We can start by voting Merkaz. Every 5 years, Jews around the world elect representatives to the World Zionist Congress. At the Zionist Congress, you not only have a voice, you have a vote, and it is more important than ever. Not voting is not an option. Like we learned at the last Congress, a vote for Merkaz is a vote for fighting for our values and supporting those who need it most in Israel, for investing millions in programs in our own communities. Your vote gives you real influence and brings real change in Israel and the Jewish world. Not voting, however, means handing power and millions over to the same type of extremist forces who have helped drive Israel apart and into the abyss, who want to spend those millions not on rebuilding Israel, but on reshaping it and the Jewish world in their radical image, who want to transform Israel from an open democracy that unites us into an illiberal, fundamentalist state that erases us and our Jewish identity. We cannot let that happen. Now more than ever, we must fight for a safe, strong, Jewish and democratic Israel. That's why Merkaz needs your help. Elections for the World Zionist Congress are coming soon, and it's time to get to work. To make sure your friends and neighbors will go online and vote for Merkaz. For too many years, we've missed this chance to make our voices heard. Not this time. This time, we will vote Merkaz and make our voice heard loud and clear in Israel.
The elections are going to be in the US between March 10th, a few days before Purim, until May 4th, a few days after Yom Ha'atzmaut. It's very easy to vote. It's you need to be over 18. You need to be Jewish. You need to be Zionist. You need to click all these three, and you need to pay $5. The shekel Tzioni, the Zionist shekels from the first Zionist Congress up until today. There is a token that you need to be in order to be part of building the building, and to actually vote. Now, our hope that in each conservative congregation in the US, at least the number of households would be the numbers of votes, meaning one vote per household will be in a significantly better shape than we are today. We know that the numbers of voters in this coming elections will be at least doubled or not tripled from the previous one, because we see how others, the other side, I don't want to say the other side, I believe in unity, but we see in politics, we see how they work their field. And as we know, it's easier to mobilize some field. It's much more challenging to mobilize our field, right? So we need your help on that. We developed a mechanism that has to do, you'll get these postcard in a second, and it will be handed. Each one of the three congregations here have a code. Once you click on the QR, go to the website and write your name, you'll be reminded by a captain from your congregation. Each congregation has a captain. You'll be reminded when time comes, yes, I get it. I will remember to vote. I will remember to ask others to vote too. Our friends, our family, our relatives, siblings, children, grandchildren, everyone who is over 18. This is voting. This is elections like any other elections. Like the elections that we get it when it's for the county or for the president or for the prime minister. Elections are elections. It's all ends up with a score at the end. And hopefully this time we will be able to take again a pride with the fact that Zionism and democracy and liberalism are not are not against each other, could be worked on one stage, on one platform, like we believe in Merkaz and in the Zionist movement at large. I want to stop here.
I'll just add about
Yeah.
I'll just say that each, I'm Yizhar, I work with Yizhar, I'm from Jerusalem, and each congregation has a code. So actually, like, just to say, Brad, who's here, he's the captain of Park Synagogue. And we have a code for Park, which is 432. So if you put on that little white window, 432. So when you register when you pledge to vote, so at the end, Brad would know, oh, Mrs. Cohen has pledged to vote, and he'll remind you, and he'll check in with you, and that's how we'll have a better sense of what's going on in each congregation. I'll just say to you that Bnei Jeshurun, you have a great number, 242. So if you put that down, and if we have your members of Sharei Tikva, it's 563. So 242 for Bnei Jeshurun, and 432 for Park, and 563 for Sharei Tikva, and it helps us. It's in our system. And for the different captains that we have in each congregation, which is a lay leader who's sort of organizing the congregation to vote, to just know what's going on in each community. So that's a little white window.
Thank you, Tuda. Yeah, if of course Q&A, I'd love to address. Yes, please, sir.
You can hear me. What is the? Can you elaborate more on the second one, peace? You mentioned the second pillar, peace. Can you elaborate a little more on that?
I wish I could. Really, I think that it's essential that we will be able to have peace with our neighbors. What would it look like? I'm not sure. I am certain that any leader of Israel and any leader of the other side, okay, needs to work on it. And I cannot do anything with the leaders of the other side. I think that any responsible leader from our side needs to take it under consideration. Now, that's a good question. I wish I could answer it. You want me to say concessions, right? I wouldn't say it. Who knows? Who knows? I do not want to get into it, not because I do not have an opinion on it, okay? Not because I don't have an opinion on it, because I think that after the catastrophe that we had, I'm sure that some new paradigms will arise. And I think that we saw nations with hundreds years of hatred between them, right? Hundreds. And today we look at it and we think, boy, how could the French hate the English people and the English people hate the French in such a way? Okay, I choose to be optimistic on that arena as well. I think that we need to get to a day when us and the Palestinians will be able to live together. How exactly would it be? I don't know. See, I didn't say concessions yet. Yes, please.
Just for those online, if you're listening, what do the votes signify?
What is signify?
Like, what does it amount to? Is that what you're asking?
What does it actually mean? How do you verify? How do you know other people aren't voting?
So the election system that the AZM, American Zionist Movement, developed is very sophisticated and reliable. I'm hoping I'm not. It seems that it's coming down here. It's okay. It's sophisticated and reliable. It has like you cannot vote unless you identify yourself. You need to pay the $5 with a credit card. So they know that one credit card is not being used more than 4 times in one household in order to make sure no one is working the system not in an honest way. It is something that I know from previous rounds that you can rely on. Then all the votes are being counted. And according to the number of mandates, number of seats in the Congress that North America has, it's being divided. So what would be the size of each mandate? Like, would it be 1,000 votes or 10,000 votes? I don't know yet. It is based on the number of people that will be voting. And then it will be divided by the number of slates and votes. Quite simple. not complicated. We need to remember that it's not like the American system of presidential kind of elections, but more of Israel and Britain, a coalition kind of administration. So after the elections, there is a coalition that is being formed, and this is how everything is being operated and divided. We will have a challenge after the elections. I know it already, because there is a custom in Hague, in the WZO, in the Congress, to have a coalition from wall to wall, to make sure that everyone is around the table. I'm not sure that we will be able to do it this time. In the last Congress, Ben-Gvir's party was not represented in the Knesset, therefore it was not represented in the Congress. It's not the case now. Ben-Gvir is in the Knesset. It means that he will have representation in the Congress. I would advocate strongly that we will not have a coalition agreement with Ben-Gvir's party. I think that racism and Zionism should not go together. And I think that everyone who cares for the future of Zionism must insist that this time we will have a coalition with two sides of the aisle, for sure. But there are limits to our pluralism. And such a party should not be part of the coalition. For that, we need, of course, enough power. But this is a valuable decision that I think that we can all agree upon.
Can I ask a question before? Can you, as the former head of Masorti conservative Judaism in Israel, can you give us a sense of how conservative communities are in Israel at this moment?
So this is something that I'm so proud of. The Masorti movement in Israel, this is conservative Judaism called here in the majority of the world, just in the US and Canada, conservative Judaism is called conservative. In all of the other parts of the world, it's Masorti. In Latin America, in Europe, Masorti stands for tradition. In spite of the fact that Masorti conservative Judaism is not funded in Israel by the government, we are growing in numbers. Today, according to various statistics methodologies, between 7 to 8% of Jews in Israel would define themselves either Reform or conservative Masorti. Okay, 7 to 8%. It's a lot. It's a minority, but not an insignificant one, and it's about half and half. So we have couple or 300,000 Israelis that would identify with the values that we stand for in an environment that is not a free market of ideas, because when only one segment of Jewish life is funded and the others are not, it's not easy to go up in numbers, and this is what we do. Today there are almost 100 Masorti congregations in Israel. The number is growing. We have a thriving youth movement. We offer religious services to the population. And yes, our religious services are not necessarily recognized, but they are consumed, which stands for something. You, Rabbi, if you would officiate a wedding in Israel, it would not be recognized by the government. Misrad Apnim, the Ministry of Internal Affairs, would not authorize this wedding. Still, there are many Israelis who do it this way and say, okay, we will not be registered in Israel as a married couple, but we will live Jewishly as married couple without a bow to the monopoly of the Chief Rabbinate, which is not an easy monopoly, you can imagine. So we are, challenged by budgets, and I encourage you, when you think about giving to Israel, to give to the Masorti movement, no doubt, as well as to the Schechter Institute. Yet, we are, I think, in better shape than before, due to the fact that the field itself consumes our services in a better way. Yes, please.
How many people in a household? How many people in a household can vote? Is it just one?
No. Every Jew could vote. I was referring to households because I want to give an example. Like in a given congregation, there are 600 households. We hope that at least 600 people will be voting this time. As you can see, it could be way more.
Over 18 or over, correct?
Over 18 and over. Everyone over 18 and over can vote. And it's an easy process. It's a 5 minutes act. Yes, please.
So, WZC, is there a simple... WZ,
WZO,
Congress,
WZC, it's the
all
same.
over yeah. Is there a singular definition of Zionist for that organization? And if there is, could you tell us what that definition is?
Yeah. So when you want to vote, you need to approve the Jerusalem platform. The Jerusalem platform succeeded, came after. The Jerusalem platform came after the Basel platform, from Basel, and it has all the motherhood and apple pie of Zionism. It speaks about sovereignty, it speaks about democracy, it speaks about Megillat Ha'atzmaut, about the Declaration of Independence, it speaks about Ityashvut, it speaks about, really nothing there is controversial. The very basic ideas, and that's the definition. Not something complicated, not something that aims to be controversial. Because of course there is a way to we tried, I think rightly, to be a wide tent, the wider tent as possible, in order to have people from the right, people from the left, people from more frum and less frum, and not religious at all, to feel that this is their home. Yes.
When I looked up the World Zionist Congress, I saw another group, Hatikva. How do you differ from them? And what is your stand on a two-state solution?
So, great question. Hatikva is a slate that ran last time. I think that they will run this time. I'm not sure. I don't know. That stands to our left. Okay, it's pretty much their main agenda is the two-state solution. I respect Hatikva very much. Listen, I need to solve it for a second. Okay, I see that it comes in the... Okay, Yofi. I won't touch it. So Hatikva, they stand to our left. It's like Meretz in the Israeli Knesset. Now, I'll tell you effectively, does it make sense or doesn't it? Ideologically, if you identify with their ideas, I'm not sure, and of course I have an interest here, okay, I'm not sure that it's wise to take that path, because at the end of the day, they are associated with Meretz party in the Knesset, okay? With the Meretz. Meretz is a left-wing party in the Knesset. At the end of the day, slates that have representation also in the Knesset, not only outside of Israel, but also in the Knesset, at the end of the day, they take their orders. They take their marching orders from the Knesset. And multiple times I saw that the only ones who stands to the values that you care for, okay, are the two movements, the Reform slate and the Conservative Masorti slates. We do not have, our constituency in Israel didn't vote for us, okay? The Reform and Conservative Jews, they voted to the Knesset regularly. We don't have a party in the Knesset. Our constituency is here. And we saw a million times that the delegates that have representation in the Knesset would walk out of the room because some deal that was cooked in the Knesset and reflects the less important thing for the Knesset leaders that are part of the Congress. So this is something that is very important to think of. I can give you even some tangible examples for that. Okay, now we are on Zoom, so I'll give you some tangible examples. As you can imagine, of planting trees in Israel and forests, it's not only an issue of environment and green values. Okay, planting trees could be used to enhance ideas, to jeopardize ideas, to harm rights of populations. It depends where you plant, how you plant. If you do it because you don't want others to, there are million reasons to be very cautious when it comes to tree planting in Israel. I can tell you that again and again and again, only the two movements, Reform and Conservative Jews, in different slates and with different parties, were the ones to protect those things that are heavily related to the potential of having two-state solution. Now, Conservative Judaism, in the past, in various arenas, including the Rabbinical Assembly, it was October 7th. This is true, but multiple times had resolutions for two-state solutions. So on that, if you are for two-state solution, you can say definitely it's part of our portfolio. We do not think that at this that Merkaz that represents people from center right and center left, maybe more to the left and less to the right, doesn't matter. This is not an issue that the World Zionist Congress is dealing with directly. Peace process will be signed by the government and the Knesset. This is not something that within our ranks to solve. What we can do is to make sure that within our power it will be possible to get there. And on everything that has linkage to those issues, we are the ones on guard. And I'll give you some examples if you want. I don't want to be, the reason why I'm not saying it publicly is because we don't want to create backlash. We are a minority now in the Congress. We don't want the other side but I feel very good with my values, and I definitely see that the future of Israel cannot ignore the need for peace.
One last
Yes.
question.
Given the number of people who attended live, and I don't know how many people are watching, is there a game plan that you have for synagogues in the United States as to educating all of the members of the synagogue who can vote, so at least they understand the different parts of the World Zionist Congress, how important their vote is, because if they don't know, they're not going to do it. And I would imagine that there are so many different ways of approaching members of a synagogue to educate them to do the right thing, which is
Right.
to vote. That is such an important thing that we have, and if you don't vote, you lose the ability to vote, and then you don't have a democracy anymore.
This is true. So I want to tell you that as much as I think that we will be able to educate everyone, I'm realistic. And what we learned, that at the end of the day, it's not that you have to be an expert on Zionism. It's not that you have to be an expert about the World Zionist Congress or the mechanism. You need to be approached by someone that you appreciate. Someone that you appreciate asks you to do something that stands for his values or her values and yours, you do it. Like, you vote for the presidential elections even though you do not 100% understand how the electoral vote works, right? Because it's, or how exactly committees in the Congress or in the Senate operate. Because it's, but you get the main core, the main principle. I know that via messaging and via education, we will not be able to touch enough people. I do believe, I do hope that via the organizational apparatus that we will have in congregations, people will be approached by people that they appreciate. Their rabbis, their captain, lay leaders, that, you know, it's so important, please vote. Hopefully that would work. It works in politics, that kind of a field from bottom up kind of approach. We'll do our utmost. This is our shift to do the utmost. But,
Yeah, I'll just say that, right, Yizhar and Devorah are on a tour of North America. They were in Pittsburgh, Columbus, going to Boston, and right, so they're trying to get the message out and giving a toolkit to synagogues to share how we can vote and what that vote means. All right, you guys get the last question.
Last one, real quick. Do you movement really believe in two-state solution? And if yes, why?
you know, what can I tell you? Do I believe? I'm not sure. Do I not believe? I'm not sure either. I really think that at the end of the day, the people who live in Eretz Israel, Jews and Arabs, Israelis and Palestinians, must find a way to live together in dignity. In dignity. Now, dignity is something that you understand it when it comes to you. It's harder when it comes to your neighbor, because I do understand that the Palestinian people have rights in Eretz Israel, And of course, I understand that I have rights in Eretz Israel. I hope that after the tragedy that the two nations had in the last year, and it's a huge tragedy, we feel our tragedy because it's ours. The tragedy of the Palestinian people, it's quite a tragedy. You know, proportion-wise, they lost in numbers and in percentages way more than we lost. It's a heavy burden to be a Palestinian, okay? I acknowledge it. I value my life because I want to live, okay? It's not that I think that we should let go anything. I think that we must, for our children and grandchildren, to do the utmost that we'll get to a reasonable peace with the Palestinians. It cannot work differently. The number of people that we lost, the number of people that they lost, it's absurd.
I'm sorry, you did not ask my question.
I know. I can tell you that Merkaz didn't make a decision on it. The Rabbinical Assembly did have multiple times. They had resolutions about two-state solution for it. Yes, I can tell you that it's too flat to say automatically that all the solutions that we had prior to October 7th are the same and nothing had changed after October 7th. I don't know, but I do not want to cancel any option, okay? I think that it's more reasonable and more responsible to say it this way.
But the option was on the table for 75 years.
What?
75 years, it's option on the table.
Of course it's an option on the table, but you need...
Why you believe it will be in 100 years or 76 years?
Yeah, I won't give you a better answer. I wish I had, by the way.
I think it means you need to come back some point.
Yeah.
How about that?
Yeah, gladly.
And we'll see you in Israel. Thank
Yofi,
you,
תודה
Yizhar.
רבה,
Thank you,
חברים. Thank you for
Devorah.
coming tonight.
Everyone's welcome to join. We have some treats if you want. And of course, Yizhar's here if anyone wants to spend a few minutes and ask questions.